Welcome to the presentation of a lecture from Gnostic Radio, a free public service from the Gnostic tradition of Samael Aun-Weor. Gnosis is the root wisdom of all the world's great religions. Gnosis is a universal teaching of practical science, whose goal is absolute liberation from suffering and the complete development of the human being. This lecture is one of many available by free download or podcast. The hundreds of hours of lectures range in topic and complexity in order to address the many needs of humanity. Each Saturday, Gnostic Radio broadcasts live. The live lecture is accompanied by an online chat, allowing listeners to read additional explanations related to the lecture and providing an opportunity to ask questions of the speaker. To learn how to participate or tune into our continuous web broadcast, visit our website for more information at gnosticradio.org. Gnostic Radio is made possible by the financial support of listeners like you. For more information or to make a donation, visit our website at gnosticradio.org. Now, with heartfelt wishes for the end of suffering for all creatures, we begin the lecture. May all beings be happy.
Good morning. It's nice to see everybody here after our long break. So welcome back. Today we're going to be doing our second lecture in our Healthy Spirituality series. And for those of you who are listening live on the radio, there's actually a PowerPoint that accompanies this lecture. If you go to gnostic-community.org/online-classroom, you'll find one. It'll say download the materials that correspond to this lecture. If you're listening to a recorded version of this lecture, you'll find the PowerPoint near the download button. So we're continuing this series because it is so important to be putting in the proper fuel into our temples. And many people have requested us to talk about this topic. So we're continuing with today's lecture, which will be on protein. And actually, it'll be broken up into two lectures because as I was preparing for this lecture, I realized there is way more material than we can cover in about an hour and a half. So I'd rather focus on a few different types of protein for each lecture. So the first question that I'd like to start with is, why do we need to feed our bodies well? So the answer is to be able to perform the spiritual work of our being. That's really what it comes to every time. The better fuel we put into our bodies, the more energy we're going to have in order to do our spiritual work. Okay, good fuel makes our bodies run longer, better. The better atoms we put into our body, the more we're going to be able to perform the work that we want to perform spiritually. Okay, so for example, just sitting in a posture like this one here requires a flexible body, requires a body that can sit still, requires a body that can be at peace, right? If you imagine drinking coffee with a lot of sugar before trying to sit and meditate, you would not be able to do that, right? So putting in the proper fuel in order to be able to even do these kind of postures, positions, exercises is really the goal of these lectures, is to teach us what are the best options for us. And there we go. Okay. So in our first lecture, we spoke about eating more fresh fruits and vegetables. And we also spoke about cooking more for ourselves. And as the master said, foods should be used in a balanced manner so as to obtain the best nutrition. He goes on to say we should eat many vegetables. Remember that vegetables are fountains of great nourishment. Vitamins are found in vegetables. right? It's a simple statement, but a very profound statement, because in those vegetables, in those fruit, we find a lot of solar light. And the more solar light we put in our bodies, the more solar light that will be in our bodies, the more that we'll be able to perform the work of our being. Okay, so if you missed our first lecture, you can find it on gnosticradio.org, and it'll be Healthy Spirituality Lecture Part 1. So in this first half of our proteins lecture, I intend to cover the following. First, defining what is protein, why do we need it, different types of protein, and issues surrounding them. Unfortunately, there are a lot of issues in the way our protein is being produced nowadays, and we're going to talk about some of those. Today, the proteins that we will be focusing on are eggs, meat, and fish. So some of the things we'll be talking about with the eggs is free range versus conventional. Which eggs should we be buying? Which eggs are good for us to be eating? Meat, we're going to be talking a lot about factory farming today. If you're not familiar with that, you'll learn a lot about it. And actually, at the end of the lecture, the students here will get to watch a movie on factory farming called The Matrix, which I will ask all of you to watch as well who are listening online. Fish, there's a lot of things going on with fish. Contamination, overfishing, GMOs, genetically modified fish as well. So that's my intention for today's lecture. So first of all, let's start out with what is a protein. We all hear a lot about proteins, and we know we should be eating protein, but what exactly is a protein? So protein is actually a component of food made up of amino acids. And the amino acids are the building blocks for major parts of a lean human body. They are crucial to the minute-by-minute regulation and the maintenance of our body. And our body actually makes its own amino acids, but it can't make all of them. We also need to get certain amino acids from foods that we eat. So that's why it's important that we have protein in our diet. And enzymes, hormones, collagen, and hemoglobin, which has the vital job of transporting oxygen from our lungs to our cells, are all made up of protein. So you can imagine it's crucial for vital function, regulation, and maintenance of our bodies. Now, how much protein we need and what kind of protein? Protein comes in so many different forms. So how much do we need? Everybody asks, well, how much meat should I be eating? How many eggs should I eat? Really, it depends on you, on your body. What's going to be the right formula for me is going to be different from you. Okay, we are bio-individuals, meaning you have to figure out what that is for you. So today I'm going to give you a general overview on some of those proteins, but really the experimentation with the proteins is up to you. We really need to find out what works best. Some people need a little bit of protein, while others need a lot more, depending on your lifestyle, on your body. Okay. So talking about the different types of proteins, as you know, proteins comes in the form of eggs, meat, fish, dairy, products from bees, grains, beans, soy milk, nuts, protein bars, and protein powders. These are the types of proteins that exist. And if you ask science, if you ask a scientist about a protein, they're going to say a protein is a protein is a protein. Whether it comes from soy milk or it comes from fish, it's a protein. But if we think about that really, and we think about the energetics of food, we realize that that's probably not true. When you eat meat or when you eat beans, you feel different, right? They have a different reaction in our body. If you eat soy as opposed to fish, you're going to have a different reaction in your body, because all proteins, everything that's living, is made up of energy, matter, and consciousness. And obviously, that matter is going to have a different effect on your matter, right? So, for example, if you have an animal that is taken to be slaughtered, and it knows it's going to be slaughtered, what do you think is happening inside of that animal? Fear, right? A rush of adrenaline, different hormones being released. Where does that go? Goes into their bloodstream, goes into their muscles, goes into their body. When you eat that, how is that going to affect your matter? How is that going to affect your energy? Obviously, it's going to have an effect, right? So we have to think about that. As you try these different types of proteins, see what the reactions are inside of your body. See how the energy is different when you eat one as opposed to the other. For example, I know personally when I eat meat or fish, I have a very different reaction than when I eat beans or nuts, right? It'll give me a different type of energy, a different type of feeling. Even the quality of meat I eat. If I have a hamburger from a fast food restaurant and a hamburger made out of grass-fed organic beef, it's going to have a different energy. So as you explore different types of energies and what works well in your body, observe your body. Right? We're always talking about observing our egos and observing our all the things that are happening in our day. You also have to observe what you're putting in and how it's affecting your body. So as you're eating these different types of proteins, see what kind of reactions they're having. There's a really good book on this. If you're into food energetics, there's a book called Energetics of Food by Steve, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, Gagné, G-A-G-N-E. And it talks all about food energetics. So if that's a topic you're interested in exploring in, I urge you to take a look at that. So as we look at proteins, we're on slide 7 for those listening online. Grams of protein per ounce. You know, as you look at these different types of food and how many grams of protein is available per ounce, you might be surprised by some of these. Soybeans, for example, 10 grams of soybeans, there's 10 grams of protein per ounce of soybeans. That's a lot of protein there, you know, but some of you may not be able to eat soybeans. There's a lot of allergies to soybeans. So taking a look at this list, you know, you think a 6-ounce broiled steak is a great source of protein, right? You get a 6-ounce piece of steak, you say, oh, I'm in the mood for some protein. Yeah, but that's about 38 grams worth of protein, but it also gives you 44 grams of fat. So one 6-ounce steak, porterhouse steak, say, will give you 44 grams of fat. 16 of them are saturated, right? So that's almost 3/4 of what's recommended for you for one day. So the same amount of salmon, 6 ounces of salmon will give you 34 grams of protein and 18 grams of fat. 4 of them are saturated. So salmon's going to give you a much better source of protein. It's not going to have all that saturated fat in there, as opposed to a steak. But sometimes we're in the mood for a steak, and that's fine. Sometimes you want a piece of beef. Try to choose leaner cuts. Try to choose the ones that don't have all that fat, because you're going to get a lot of that saturated fat, which will clog up your arteries. So when choosing your proteins, try a variety of proteins. Because if all, you know, Americans tend to eat, or a lot of Western culture tends to focus on beef. You know, we eat beef, and we eat a lot of beef in these countries. And then what happens is a lot of health issues that are associated with beef, you know, high cholesterol, clogged arteries, you'll have a tendency to get those illnesses. So as you're trying beef, try different types. There's tons of different types of protein out there. So explore them. Don't only be in the same routine of, you know, chicken, beef, and fish, and that's it. Explore, you know, goat, lamb, different types of eggs. There's so many different ones. All the beans. I have about 10 varieties of beans in my pantry right now, because there's just so many different types out there that you could really enjoy. Learn to cook them. In our last lecture, we spoke about cooking your food. Learn to cook some better proteins for your body and see what reacts. Not everybody's going to like beans, and that's fine. You don't have to eat beans if you don't like them. But explore what's going on in your body when you eat these different types. Choosing protein-rich foods, be smart with your choices. Explore them. See what works better for you. So, exploration. The first protein we're going to talk about more today is eggs. So eggs are practical, they're quick. You know, if you're in the mood sometimes for dinner, I'll just make a couple of eggs with some rice, and that'll be dinner. And that's, you know, that's perfectly fine. A lot of times people think, well, I should only eat the whites of the egg. If you want the complete nutrition, if you want the total energy of the egg, eat the whole egg. Total energy of the egg. You know, there's a reason why there's a yolk as well as the white. and that'll give you the whole energy of the egg. Try having one instead of two. Like if you're used to having 2 eggs every day, try to have 1 egg. You don't need to always have those 2. They're especially good for thin people because they're easy to digest and they're high in protein as well. So it's a good protein source. But one thing you might be noticing when you're going to buy eggs these days is all the options of eggs. Now you have your regular eggs. You have, white and brown, and then you have your cage-free, and then you have your grass-fed, and then you have your organic. So you might be saying, well, which one? They all look the same. Is there really a difference in the eggs? More and more people are becoming aware of this, and they're starting to see that there is a difference. So there's the free-roaming, free-range, all-natural, and organic. Most free-range animals are still mutilated and forced to endure long trips to the slaughterhouse without any food or water. So just because they're free range doesn't mean necessarily that they're being treated any better. They may be out and about, but they're still getting their beaks cut off and they're still being mistreated. So don't think that it's just because it's free range it's a better option. Free range organic or certified organic free-range eggs are your best option because, like we said in our last lecture, there are standards by which these farms have to follow. So when you're choosing your eggs, if you're choosing your conventional eggs, you can be sure that those are factory-farmed eggs. And that's what we're going to talk about actually next, is how the chickens are being treated on a standard farm. What happens is the vast majority of egg-laying hens in the United States and actually in other parts of the world are confined in battery cages. On slide number 9, you'll see an example of this. On average, each caged laying hen is given about 67 square inches of cage space. That's less than a sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper. Okay, so and they're given that amount of space to live their entire life. Okay, that means they're unable to spread their wings, means that they are one of the most confined animals in agribusiness. They suffer from not being able to do many of their natural behaviors. If you've ever watched a chicken, what does a chicken do? Walks around, pecks at things, spreads its wings, nests, perches. They bathe in dust bathing. This is all stuff that is natural to a hen. They're not allowed, or they can't afford to do that in these battery cages. I mean, take a look at that space there. How many hens are crammed into one little space? So these guys, besides having their beaks cut off, cannot even spread their wings or walk. Many of these hens, some have been saved by animal welfare organizations, and when they take them out, they don't even know how to walk because they have never walked. Some have never set foot on the ground, and so they don't even know how to walk. What happens with these kind of situations is there's a high risk of salmonella as well because the hygiene in these cages is obviously terrible. The Humane Society of the United States began a campaign against battery cages in 2005, and they're pressing egg producers to improve conditions and companies to change their policies because this is obviously animal cruelty. Battery cages have been banned in Switzerland since the 1st of January 1992, and actually they were the first country to do so. The European Union banned battery cages as of 2012. So as of 2012, battery cages will not be allowed in the European Union. So obviously, we're hoping that more and more people become aware of this so that we can urge the legislators here as well to stop this animal cruelty because it truly is animal cruelty. So what some companies have started doing is a system called cage-free systems. So if you look at slide 10, you'll see that they're in these, basically they're still confined, but they have space to walk around. So this offers them more more space to be able to do their natural habits. You know, they're able to walk, spread their wings, poke around. Battery cage-free systems have to get certifications. These producers of these eggs need certification in order to be able to do this kind of system and to be able to label their eggs as cage-free eggs. But not just because they have this much space doesn't mean that it's totally better off. Some never see the light of day. You know, some just stay in this like factory. You see the lights, and they never get outside. But at least they have some more space. So one manufacturer of eggs, I won't say the name of the company, but if you're interested, I'll tell you afterwards. They're a popular brand in the U.S. For organic eggs, and what they start doing is they feed their animals organic feed. They don't give any antibiotics or medication. No pesticides or herbicides are used in the production of the grain that they eat. They have wide open barns where they can choose to lay their eggs. Doesn't that sound like a luxury? The fact that the hen can choose to lay their eggs somewhere. I mean, it's sad, but that is a luxury in this industry. And you know, when it's appropriate, they get to go outside. Some countries are actually, I think it was Germany I was reading about, actually requires animals to get like 15 minutes of sunlight or people attention, like attention from people. Not for hens, but I think it was for hogs. And so different countries are trying out different things. But as you see, it is very important to buy organic, cage-free, grass-fed eggs, because when we buy regular eggs, it's like voting for factory farming. It's voting for battery cages. So every time we go out and we purchase that, it's like saying, it's okay. So it's our responsibility as well, you know, knowing that these animals are on their own evolutionary cycle. You know, maybe we were chickens at one point, right? So we have to think, like, in our evolution, these animals are also trying to go through their process. We should treat them as kindly as we could, right? If we were chickens, we wouldn't want to be stuck in a battery cage, would we? Sometimes we forget because we think, oh, they're just animals. But we were just once just animals, right? We're just intellectual animals now. That's our difference. So these are our, you know, brothers and sisters as well, our animal brothers and sisters, and we should try to treat them as humanely as possible. So another company that is a farmers cooperative produces several kinds of varieties, and what they do is it's called free farmed. So you might see a label that says free farmed, and this is a label that is actually monitored by the American Humane Association. This label promises that chickens are free from any unnecessary fear and distress, free from unnecessary pain, injury, and disease, free from hunger and thirst, and free from any unnecessary discomfort. So, you know, if you see that label, free farmed, that's what that means. Okay? So same thing, not only for our eggs, but when you're purchasing chickens, you know, whole chickens or chicken parts, make sure you're not buying that conventional chicken. Yes, it may be a few dollars cheaper than the organic, you know, grass-fed chicken, but think about what it is in the long run. Think about what you're doing not only for your own health, because when you're ingesting that regular chicken, you're ingesting the antibiotics and all those, you know, GMOs that they give through the feed, and we don't know what reaction that's going to have in our system. But not only that, every time we choose to purchase a better chicken, you know, a humanely raised chicken, we're helping those animals. We're saying no to the conventional, and we're saying yes to better treated animals. So we're actually helping out the animals as well. Okay? And honestly, as aspirants of the spiritual path, we need to become conscious of what's going on around us and how animals are being treated, how other people are being treated around us, and not be a part of that vicious cycle. Because that's really what it comes down to. Do we want to just be a part of that cycle where it's all about money? Why do you think that they do these battery cages? Because it's cheap It's easy, right? They can make a lot of money quick. Do we want to be a part of that, or do we want to step out of that norm? Do we want to try and have something better? You know, personally, I would like to raise my own chickens, but living here in the city, it gets a little difficult, but I think I still might try. Because actually, I will know what that chicken, how that chicken is, you know, being treated. As long as my cats don't get to it, we'd be fine. But, you know, that's really the way it used to be, right? People raise their animals. People, if they didn't raise them, their neighbors raised them, and they would know where those animals came from. We are so detached from that whole food process now. We have no idea where our food comes from. So we need to become better educated, especially when it comes, you know, fruits and vegetables are one thing, but animals are, you know, that's a whole different thing. They feel like us. They suffer like us. So we need to think about what it is we're choosing. Every time we shop, we place a vote. Whether we're voting for, you know, factory farmed foods where animals are cruelly treated, or are we going to choose the more expensive but, you know, better treated organic or, you know, humanely treated meat and chickens. So every time we go out there shopping, we're placing votes. Okay. So that brings us, you know, to the different types of meats that exist as well. There are so many different types of meat. Sometimes we think meat, we only think, you know, cow meat. But actually, you know, there's chicken, turkey, duck, lamb, beef, buffalo, ostrich, so many other choices as well. And what we need to do, you know, if you're a meat eater, that's fine. You know, some people they could very comfortably be vegetarians and other people can't, and that's fine. It depends on your bio-individuality. I'm not saying this is not a lecture about vegetarianism and everybody should become a vegetarian. You've got to, like I said, figure out what works for you. We're actually going to talk in our next lecture more about vegetarianism. And so today, let's focus on just all the proteins. So if you are a meat eater, try different types of proteins. You know, try different types of meats. You don't want to just stick to one type of meat because, like I said, there are many health-related illnesses that develop within your body when you just stick to one type of meat. Vary it up. You know, go out there. Nowadays, you can find buffalo burgers and ostrich eggs. By the way, have you ever seen the size of an ostrich egg? Oh my goodness. It's like, I don't know, like something like this, a foot big, foot tall. And I actually saw it at Whole Foods, and I was like, that could be an omelet for like all of us here. You know, it's like a 20-person omelet. I think it takes like 4 hours to boil, something ridiculous like that for a hard-boiled egg. But my point is, and it was like $30, so I didn't buy it. But you know, if you're interested, maybe we'll all chip in and have an ostrich egg omelet next week. But, you know, the point is try it. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe you do like it. You know, before, I never ate, when my husband and I got together, he introduced me to all these, like, different meats that I never ate. Because, you know, I grew up like a regular American diet, you know, beef and chicken and fish. And that was pretty much and pork. That was pretty much my diet. And then he came along and said, well, there's goat, and there's lamb, and there's oxtail, and there's, just weird things. And I was just like, wow, okay, so let's try different things, you know, and buffalo. And so get different things in your body because each animal provides different types of nourishment as well, right? And different types of energies that you're going to feel in your body. So try them out. Give it a try. Maybe you're going to like it. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll be like, wow, when I eat this, I feel great. Good. But you'll never know if you don't give it a try. So try those out. You know, associated with meat, there are many problems nowadays. Like I said, due to factory farming being one of them. So there's antibiotics being put into many of the animals, factory farming, animal cruelty, cloning nowadays, irradiation, toxic sludge, E. coli bacteria, mad cow disease, genetic engineering, bovine growth hormone, cancer, heart disease, obesity, and constipation. These are many of the problems associated with meat eating. So a few things to think about when you are eating meat. Conventional meat and poultry, when I say conventional, I'm talking about not organic, not grass-fed, just your regular old factory farm, they're being fed conventional food. So what that means, it's usually genetically modified grains, okay, corn or soy, and just like carbohydrates will get us fattened up, it fattens up the animals as well very quickly. A cow naturally eats grass, right? But on these factory farms, they just feed them corn and soy feed and all this other stuff to just get them fattened up faster. But they're not made for that. So what happens is, since they're not made for that, they start getting ulcers and all these health problems. And I once saw, it was quite disturbing. I once saw on one of these movies where they had a hole actually in the side of the cow, and they were treating it because it had all these ulcers, and they stuck their hand into the cow's stomach and pulled out all of this like guck, like corn guck and just oozing, and it was just really bad for the cow, and they were pumping it then with antibiotics to treat these illnesses. And then they sell that meat to us. So when you see that, you're just like, okay, I don't want to eat that meat, but we're eating that meat. When we go out to restaurants, unless you're going to a really good restaurant that's serving vegetarian, grass-fed organic meats, you're eating that type of meat. You're eating the meat that's been pumped with all this medication and antibiotics, and because the cow's not meant to be fed corn and soy. They're meant to be grazing, eating grass. So when you're eating just conventional food, that's what you're getting. Okay, all the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and fertilizer that the grain was made with, you're ingesting that as well, because that's what the cow's eating. Okay, it's a food chain, right? Cow eats bad grains. We eat bad cow. What's going to happen to us? Right? It's logical. We're not going to be very healthy, are we? It's pretty simple to see. Also, because these animals, conventionally raised animals and poultry, are often kept in those confined quarters and not given space to roam, they're not as healthy. If you watch these movies, which I will give you a few links to watch, I warn you, they will tear at your heartstrings, because when you see what's actually happening, it will either shock you or make you cry. Because it's really sad what's happening. And it's actually against the law to have pictures of these factory farms and like videos of them, but people go undercover and they find it. But it's actually a law that you can't have these photos and videos, because they know if people saw this, if more and more people saw this, they wouldn't buy it. Right? Because of how cruelly these animals are treated. Cows can't stand up. They're living in their own filth. When you see it, it's quite the eye opener. We'll see a milder version at the end of this lecture through Meat Tricks, which is actually an animated movie, because I just find it easier to watch personally as well. So they're given poor quality of food, lack of exercise. They're stuck in these tight barns or factories. And, all this antibiotics that they're using to treat the animals, what happens is, in the United States, they give them something called Prozac to, this actually is a hormone that they give to increase milk production. And it's a combination of a few different things, but what it does is it increases the cow's milk production. It's banned in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the European Union, and Japan. Okay, but the United States still uses it. In meat cattle, 5 growth promoting hormones are used in Canada and the U.S. still. And testosterone, progesterone, estradiol, and some synthetic ones as well. These hormones were banned in Europe since 1989. So my question is, if all these other countries are so smart about banning all this stuff, why are we still using it? Why? Well, probably because it's just a huge money-making industry. And also because people here perhaps aren't aware of a lot of these topics, and that's one of my goals through this lecture series as well, is to make us aware of what's happening in the world. We need to be aware because we're part of this. And if we aren't aware of it, then we just blindly go and we do whatever, these big businesses want us to do and eat whatever they want us to eat, and actually just poisoning us all slowly. So those are some of the problems that we have associated with meat. So like I said, if when eating meat, choose the best quality meat. So a factory farm, I've been talking about factory farm, but what exactly is a factory farm? Factory farming, started with big business, and before, people used to have these small family farms. When you have that vision of a family farm, you see the chickens outside and the cows grazing and the farmer coming out and milking the cows, right? That's what we have in our image, in our minds. But when more and more people started moving into the cities and leaving the farms, big business started buying up all of these small family farms and creating these big factory farms. It was easier, it was quicker, cheaper to produce, and the problem with this is it's all for profit. They don't care about, the cows. Farmers cared about their animals. Farmers cared about their land. These are factory-run businesses. This is just the business. Okay, and what happens is it's actually institutionalized animal cruelty. It's massive. It's creating massive environmental destruction, resource depletion, and animal and human health risks. It's not only a risk for the animals, it's a human health risk. How many times do you hear these recalls of meat, of eggs, of all these different things? It's because of the methods that are being used on factory farms. It's because the chickens are sitting in their own manure and their own, the cows are sitting in this sludge, and they're all, one's sick, the other one gets sick because they're so close together. Factory farms are also called concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs. Just the title of that alone, concentrated animal feeding operation, that does not give you a warm, fuzzy feeling, does it? Where do you want your meat to be coming from a concentrated animal feeding operation? But that's what business is doing now. They emphasize high volume and profit with little concern for human health, safe food, the environment, humane treatment of animals, and the rural economy. While factory farms vary by animal type and region, the defining characteristic of a factory farm is that hundreds of thousands of animals, mainly cows, pigs, chickens, or turkeys, are confined tightly together and provided little access to sunlight, fresh air, or room for natural movement. Some facilities produce millions of animals annually. So that just gives you an idea. If you're producing millions of animals annually, how many are you packing in there and turning over? And just feeding so you can take them to slaughter. And that's what the reality of a factory farm is. And that's where most of your food is coming from, most of our food. Any conventional food, and most of what restaurants are feeding you is conventional meat. So the problems with factory farms, is obviously the excessive size, the disregard for animal welfare, misuse of pharmaceuticals, and mismanagement of waste. So there are unnaturally large numbers of animals confined closely together. Animals were not meant to be so close together. They're meant to have space and, roaming. Cattle feedlots generally contain thousands of animals in one place, while many egg-laying businesses house 1 million or more chickens. If you look on slide 14 and you look at the slide on the right, you'll see how they house their chickens. So it's pitch black, usually, in there, and they just have them lined row by row by row by row, stacked next to each other. Usually no beaks, so they can't hurt each other. And they just collect the eggs. And those hens never see the light of day. And also on the left, you'll see pigs. These little piglets don't even have room, some of them, to reach the ground. They're just all packed in there. These kind of operations are mostly done with cows, pigs, chickens, and turkeys, but they also practice factory farms with sheep, goats, rabbits, and other types of poultry. So it's not just the main ones, it's mostly any kind of animal. You'll find factory farms. And factory farms aren't just a U.S. Phenomenon, they're all over the world. And there's actually in up and coming in countries that are becoming more and more powerful, more and more of these factory farms are also increasing. So there's more of a demand for meat. And the disregard for animal welfare. A typical factory farm will be a metal building, okay, no windows, minimal room for normal behavior, if little or no sunlight. Usually there's no sunlight, very little fresh air. Animals are mutilated to adapt to their factory farm conditions. This includes cutting off beaks of chickens and turkeys, which is called debeaking, and amputating the tails of cows and pigs, which is called docking. Pens and cages restrict the animal behavior and movement of animals, and in some cases, such as veal calves and mothering pigs, the animals can't even turn around. That's how small of a space they give them, that they can't even turn. Okay. Misuse of pharmaceuticals. Low doses of antibiotics are administered regularly to animals in a preemptive move to ward off disease. Diseases bred by unnatural, unsanitary conditions. They know these conditions are unsanitary, so they start pumping them with antibiotics from the beginning. Okay, the problem is then we're eating that meat. And if you notice, within the last, I'd say, 10, 20 years, have you noticed young girls developing quicker as well? Right? Girls who used to reach puberty at, 13, 14, 15 years old are now reaching it at 8, 9, 10 years old. Right? Because of all of these hormones that are being pumped into the meat, it's going inside of their own bodies. So girls are now developing breasts, getting their periods way sooner than they should. And it's, before, 100 years ago, the average age was between 16 and 18. It's cut in half. Girls as young as 7 are developing already. And this is due to all these hormones and antibiotics added into these meats. They give them all these hormones so that they can obviously get bigger faster, and they could slaughter them quicker. Also, so now imagine we have all of these animals in this confined space. Think about all the waste that's being produced. Okay, if you have all of these animals confined like this, where's all this waste going? Most of the time they're just sitting in it. Okay, but what happens also is this pollutes the air and water around the farms. Man-made lagoons on industrial farms hold millions of gallons of liquid waste. So they actually have these lagoons where they put all of this waste there. But what happens is it leaches into the groundwater, right? And then there's runoff. So when it rains, guess what's happening? It's getting washed off into our rivers and lakes and, going to our water supply. So all of this waste is going into our own water supply. It's also, the manure is normally sprayed on crops, okay, but often excessively it leads to runoff in the surface water. The nutrients and bacteria from waste can contaminate waterways, killing fish and shellfish and disturbing aquatic ecosystems. So just think about all this waste, what it does to the fish. There's not supposed to be all of this kind of toxic sludge going into our riverways, right? So not only are we polluting the ground, the groundwater, we're polluting all of those waterways near these farms. So everything's having a domino effect, right? So those are some of the major and most obvious problems with factory farms. And like I said, we'll go into that in a little more detail with the movie. When preparing for this lecture, I came across this quote by Gandhi, and I just thought it really was a quite profound quote. And it says, "The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated." you know, when I read that, I felt a great sadness, because that obviously means that the country and the many countries of this world are not progressing morally at all, right? In fact, we're going the opposite way. If really the greatness of a nation is how, and its moral progress can be judged by how animals are treated, what does that say about us? Right? I mean, we know we're living in difficult times, right? But what does that say about who we are as a nation? Who we are as a world, if we can treat our fellow brother and sister animals in this way? I don't know, this was a really difficult lecture for me to prepare for, because it's a great sadness that I feel in my heart for this. Because where we've come in such a short time, only 100 years ago, if you think about it, you know, family farms were still in existence. And in this short time, we have managed to destroy a whole way of life. And living in cities is fine, right, if you're going to choose to live in it, but we need to be conscious of the choices we make when we do go to the supermarket and the foods we do choose, because that's the least we could do to help those animals. So, like I said, when choosing the quality of what you eat, make sure what you buy is certified organic meat, poultry, dairy, and eggs. Because at least, hopefully, we know there's some standard there. And we know that it's being fed organic food. They're not given antibiotics, growth hormones, or fed animal byproducts. The best thing is, honestly, if you live close enough, go to local farms. Get to know your farmer. Take a look at what's happening on the farm, how they treat their animals. You know, with these farmers markets nowadays, it's nice because you could go and talk, but going to the actual farm, like we were in Vermont last week, and we went and visited many farms, right? Because I was like, I was in glory, right? I was like, I'm going to go to all the farms and buy my own food. And so I went to this one farm, and it was lovely because, you know, they're on the honor system there, right? So they have this nice stand, eggs, vegetables, fruits, a money box, a pad of paper, and a calculator. Nobody's there. The prices are posted, and on your honor system, you choose what you're going to get. So I got some eggs and some fruits and some vegetables, and I added it all up, and I put the money in the little box, and that gave me like hope and faith. I was like, wow, people still trust other people in this day and age. If you've never experienced this, I highly recommend that you do, because it's a great feeling that you can just go up, and they had these all over Vermont. And so this one farm I went, after my purchases, I saw all the chickens, right? And they're all roaming, and they're happy, and they're free, and they're outside. And I'm like, wow, look at these beautiful chickens. This is where I got my eggs from. And it made me feel happy, right? Because I could see where my eggs came from. Right? So seeing that, becoming more in touch with our food, right? Not just being blind, and not just thinking, oh, food comes from a supermarket, because it doesn't. Okay, that's just one stop off. Go back and find out what's happening with your food. You know. So when you're buying your food, make sure that you're at least getting this standard of food. Okay, so you're eliminating at least some of the risks, right, by eating a better quality meat than you would a conventional meat. So look for certified organic, free-range poultry, eggs, meat, or dairy, or pasture-fed meats. Okay, so organic, free-range, or pasture-fed meats. Pasture-fed poultry and cows are healthier, happier, and have far more omega-3 and less omega-6 in their meat, dairy, and eggs, which improves our own balance of omega-3, 6. As well as you know that the animals were humanely treated and the food products are more healthy. Okay, so when you're going out, look for those signs: organic, free-range, pasture-fed, organic, pasture-fed, because at least you know the quality of the animal's life was better, as well as the food you're going to ingest is better. I found this lovely little market not too far from my house, and I went in, and they had all this beautiful organic grass-fed beef and turkey and made their own sausages. I was watching the guy make his own sauce, the sausages. And of course, everything was pricier, right? But I was like, but this is good, this is nice. I got some beef bones because I was going to make some soup for my niece. And then I said, well, let me go home with a nice grass-fed organic steak. So I go and, I'm looking, and of course it is pricier, right? It said $24 a pound. I said, well, I'm worth it. My husband is worth it. I'm going to get it. I said, can you cut me one steak? So it comes, and I'm paying for. I got some beans and some vegetables and some fruits as well. And then she's like, and I see her ringing it up, and my husband doesn't actually know how much I paid for this steak, but he's going to find out right now. The steak came out to $48. I was like, okay, $48. I was like, But it was, one of those thick ribeyes with the bone and everything. And I had to digest the price for a while. But I came home and I said to him, guess how much I paid for this beautiful organic grass-fed steak? And he kept guessing, but he never got that high, and I just left him at that. But the point was, it was good. It was really good. It was delicious. It actually fed 3 of us with leftovers for one steak. And but it was worth it. You eat it, maybe $48 is a bit much. That was very expensive. But $20 is okay. $20 for a good piece of meat. You don't need to eat meat every day. This should be a luxury, not a necessity of every day, right? There are many other proteins you could interchange it with. But my point is, it may cost more, but think about what it's costing you if you don't eat good quality meat. If you keep eating conventional food, what is the health cost going to be? Why do you think so many people are sick these days? Why do you think so many people are on at least 3 to 4 medications? The average person is on 3 to 4 different medications. Why? Because of the food they're eating, because of the air they're breathing, because of the water they're drinking, the lack of exercise they're having. So now, right there, if we could change one component of that, put better food in your body, you're going to have a better reaction health-wise as well. If you're constantly sick, if you have constant health issues, take a look at what's going in your body and the quality of what you're putting in there. Because that has a lot to do with it. And people are looking for the magic pill, right? That's going to make them healthy. There's no magic pill. It's how you live your life every day. It's the choices you make. I was at work the other day, and one of my friends comes in from outside, and he has a bag of McDonald's. And I look at him and I go, oh, come on, McDonald's, And he says, you got to enjoy life a little. This is what he tells me. So I go, okay, and he went and ate his McDonald's, and I went and ate my leftovers from the night before's dinner, like organic this and healthy that and vegetables this, and it was delicious, right? And I was reflecting on what he said. You've got to enjoy life a little. And as I reflected on that, I go, I am enjoying life by not eating fast food. I am enjoying life by putting good fuel in my body. I am enjoying life by cooking for myself and my family, by knowing what goes into my body. That's how I enjoy life. And I feel good. I have energy. This morning, preparing for this lecture, I said, I need energy for the lecture. So I told my husband, go outside and pick me some collard greens, because I grow collard greens in the backyard. He picked me some collard greens, and I put collard greens, celery, carrot, blueberries, strawberries, manuka honey, some cacao powder, some vitamin powders, water, blended it all up, drank that. That was breakfast. And guess what? Don't say ew, it was delicious. And I have some left over for anybody who wants to try. It was delicious. And you know what it gave me? Energy. It calmed me down. I was feeling a bit nervous before the lecture, so I ate root vegetables. A carrot will make you feel more grounded. Right? I stuck that in, I drank that, and I feel good. I feel harmonious. I feel calm. I told myself I need to speak slower this lecture because I spoke so fast last lecture. And I am. But that's because I've put good fuel in my body. Now imagine instead I had a donut with a cup of coffee. what kind of reaction would I be having right now? I'd probably be talking twice as fast and crashing in about 5 minutes. Right? So I am enjoying life. Not that I got to this point overnight. Trust me, this has been a process. But I started by educating myself. And that's what I'm hoping to do with everyone here, is just starting that education process so that you start becoming more aware of what's going in your body as well. The quality of what you eat. If you're going to eat meat, eat good meat. Don't skimp on your meat. When you skimp on your meat, you're getting antibiotics, hormones, tortured animals. Do you want to eat tortured animals? I know that doesn't sound lovely, but here, have a piece of tortured steak. Right? Doesn't make you actually go, mmm. You know? When you go out to these fast food restaurants, guess what you're getting? Tortured animals. Oh, that does sound terrible. But if the animal was healthy, you in turn will be healthy. If the animal is not healthy, you will not be healthy. It's very simple, isn't it? So I'd like to read this quote by Master Samael. It says, you should be very careful with your nutrition. We do not ask you to give up meat once and for all, but we do warn you that meat, when consumed in large quantities, for example, every day, is like poison for the body. Dr. Arnold Krumm-Heller, professor of medicine of the University of Berlin and a great Gnostic doctor, sustained that man should consume 20% of his food as meat. If when you look at your plate for dinner, half of your plate is meat, that's probably too much. That's 50% of your food. Probably too much. When you choose your meat or your protein, take a look at your palm. Okay? Look at the size of your palm. This is the amount of protein you should be having. Okay? So obviously if you have a bigger hand, you're going to have a bigger palm. Because you have a bigger body, you need a little more. I'm a pretty small person. This is the size of protein I need. So when you're serving yourself chicken or beef or whatever it is, your size of protein, keep your palm in mind and go, is this piece of meat triple size my palm? Maybe I need to cut it down. Because this is what your body needs. This is a portion. But you know, in the United States, we forgot what a portion is, and we've just made everything 2 or 3 times the normal portion. That's why when we go out to eat sometimes, I just split a meal. Because I go, this is for 2 people. I don't need to eat all this. So that's why we're seeing this epidemic of obesity as well in our country. Because we've forgotten what a normal portion is. Sometimes I serve myself dinner on a small plate. Because that's probably a normal portion. You know the big dinner plates? And even there's those extra big dinner plates. You know when you go to restaurants, you get the plates are getting bigger. And you're like, oh my God, this food is just way too much. There's too much food on this plate. But you know, they get you caught up in it and it tastes good and tastes good. Next thing you know, everything's gone. Share it with somebody, or right away, as soon as you get that plate, cut it in half and ask them for a to-go plate. Put half of it away. Because we're eating too much. Okay, and there's so many risks associated with too much food as well. So a few ways that we can vote for better food, for a healthier food system in our country. Okay, this is how, I'm on slide 18, and this is a really important thing. 4 ways to vote for a healthier food system with your fork and your food budget. So what can we do? These are some immediate actions we can take in order to show that we want better food. So first of all, like I've been talking about, purchase organic food and meat from humanely raised animals. Find out where your meat is from. Find out how they produce it. Find out how the animals are treated. Okay, don't buy conventional food. Support small farmers to ensure a diverse supply chain. In the 1970s, the top 5 beef producers controlled about 25% of the market. Now they control close to 80%. 80% of our food, of our meat, is controlled by 5 beef producers. That's huge. So they get to dictate whatever they want. So the lack of diversity is obviously seriously weakening our food safety. Okay. So get to know, support the small farmers. Go out on the weekends, go to the farm, see what's going on, go to the farmers markets. Give up or cut back on soda and other junk food. It's not only made with cheap, unhealthy ingredients, but those ingredients often come from genetically modified crops whose health effects haven't been studied well yet. Okay, we're like the first guinea pigs of this whole genetically modified food source. We're really that first generation because they're starting to introduce it more and more and more. And all these health problems that people are having, they can't specifically say, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, because we have so many issues. But the genetically modified foods are obviously having some reactions in our bodies. And demand change. You know, we can write to our legislators, ask them to support food safety laws, such as Kevin's Law. This law was named for a 2-year-old boy who died of E. coli tainted meat. He had a hamburger, and he died afterwards because it had E. coli. So there's this, it's called Kevin's Law, and you know, we want to support such laws. We want to have more food safety laws out there. The law would give the USDA the power to shut down plants that repeatedly produce tainted meats, something it currently doesn't have the power to do. Could you imagine? They do not have the power to close down a plant that keeps producing tainted meat. Isn't that just ridiculous? Aren't they supposed to be watching out for our food safety? So write to your legislators. Talk to them about food safety laws, Kevin's Law. Okay? Get aware, become aware of what's going on out there. This is the only way we're going to change it. Okay? You can write to your local officials as well on these issues. The European Union is a great example. People got together and demanded better food. In the U.S., we're just like, yeah, okay. Like, not enough of us are active about it. We need to become more active. So, you know, go to senate.gov or house.gov and get in touch with your elected officials. Talk to them about these things. If we're always waiting for someone else to do it, it's never going to get done. So a few resources that you can go to on slide 19. To find a local farmer, go to www.eatwellguide.org and start asking how they produce their food. That's a really great website, actually. I found some farms on there when I was in Vermont that way. So they'll also help you to find local restaurants. That's how I found that cute little store that I spent $48 on the beef on. Yeah, they'll tell you about stores and restaurants in your area that serve organic foods and humanely raised animal food. And for more resources and reports about Factory Farm System, visit www.factoryfarm.org. And if you have the stomach for it, watch this Sierra Club video. It's called Living a Nightmare, Animal Factories in Michigan. It's a 24-minute documentary about the horrors of industrial agriculture, and it's available at Google Video. Okay, but I warn you, it does get graphic. Okay. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is fish. So, we hear so much about fish is good for you, fish is, a good source of protein, and it is. It doesn't have all that saturated fat like meat products do. It's also a great source of omega-3 fatty acids, which benefit a healthy heart and also help people who have cardiovascular disease. It helps them to deal with that. So it also decreases abnormal heartbeats, which can lead to sudden death, arrhythmias. And also it decreases triglyceride levels, okay? And it slows the growth rate of the plaque that grows in your walls and lowers blood pressure slightly. So obviously fish have many health benefits, okay? But the problem with fish these days is they live in water. And our water supply is also becoming affected. And there are many seafood issues that are going on with fish. So not only do we have to become aware of the type of meat and poultry we're eating, but also the type of fish we're eating. So some of the seafood issues that are going on right now are, while it seems like there's plenty of fish in the sea, It's a different story just below the surface. Because with overfishing, the lack of effective management, and our own consumption habits, there's a decline in wild fish. So a lot of what's happening now is a lot of these farms are being created. So a lot of places are farming their fish now as well. So few of the wild evidence of these problems abound, and overfishing has resulted in nearly all commercial fish populations being well below natural levels. In just the past decade, for example, Atlantic populations of halibut, bluefin tuna, swordfish, haddock, and flounder are all at all-time lows. The populations are all at all-time lows. The cod fishery once was the backbone of the North Atlantic economy, collapsed in the early 1990s, and the breeding population of Atlantic bluefin tuna has been declining steeply, as many of them have disappeared as well, because of the way that we're managing our fish populations. So overfishing is obviously one of the biggest problems we're having now. We're fishing faster than the fish can reproduce. Okay, so more boats are out there on the waters, and what's happening is there's more fishermen out there, and because of all of this overfishing that's happened in the last 60 years, the population of the fish can't recover quick enough. So there's less and less wild fish in the oceans. Also, another big problem with fishing is the illegal fishing that's happening. So since there are fewer fish out there, people are becoming more desperate to catch the ones that are there. And actually, they try to impose all these international laws, but they're not good at, it's obviously very difficult on the oceans to manage these. So they're figuring that at least a quarter of the world's catch is illegal. At least a quarter of the catch that is going into our stores is illegal. You know, they try to put all these limitations and stuff on how much fish we can get, but people aren't following that. Another problem is habitat damage. Many fishing practices are destroying fish and the places they live. Trawls and dredges that drag across the seafood floor destroy delicate ecosystems that provide shelter, food, and breeding grounds for fish and other species. In heavily trawled areas, it's the equivalent of clear-cutting a forest several times a year. So the way that they're trawling the ocean, just imagine clear-cutting a forest many times a year. That's what they're doing to the, fish don't have their ecosystems in place. Bycatch. Worldwide, I thought this was a very sad statistic. Worldwide, 1 out of every 4 fish is caught, 1 out of every 4 fish that is caught is discarded, dead, or dying as bycatch. They call it bycatch. One of the biggest offenders is the shrimp industry. For every pound of shrimp that is caught, it discards almost twice that in other species. It can be 10 times in some areas. And bycatch doesn't only include fish, it includes turtles, seabirds, and other animals also suffer. So those numbers to me were just staggering. If 1 out of every 4 fish is just discarded, why aren't they using those other fish? I just don't understand. Why would they just throw it out? Or it's just mind-boggling to me that we're wasting so much of the seafood of these poor animals' lives. And then management. The world over, regulations dealing with overfishing and other fishing, other issues facing our oceans are weak and they're poorly enforced. So they can't really manage all of these problems because the oceans are so vast. So really the laws and the management, the way that it's handled, they're non-existent or they're not well enforced. So what we could do is, again, by choosing what we buy, can affect what people catch. So I want to show you, I chose a few examples of the most common foods that people eat and what the effects are. So shrimp, right? Everybody loves shrimp. We're always buying shrimp. So when fish are caught, shrimp trawl nets accidentally catch and kill more than 1.8 million tons of marine life each year. So 1.8 million tons of marine life goes to waste just by trying to catch all this fish. Shrimp farming overseas has destroyed hundreds of thousands of acres of mangroves. The way that they're practicing, in the U.S., they try to have more standards for shrimp fishing, for shrimping. So if you want to eat shrimp, don't buy foreign shrimp, because the way that they're catching their shrimp is destroying natural habitats, and they're killing a lot of marine life. So if you do want to eat shrimp, don't eat shrimp too often, obviously, because there's a big impact on our environment, but try U.S. shrimp instead. Okay? So to me, that just seemed like such a waste. And I always remember what the Dalai Lama said about shrimp. He said, it seems like such a waste of life to eat shrimp, because you eat so many shrimp in one dish. You know, and it's true. I was thinking about that one day when I'm eating. I'm like 20 little guys had to die for my meal, as opposed to having something else that, you just have a portion of that animal. So really, many lives have to die for that. And not only the shrimp, look at that, 1.8 million tons of other animals are also dying as a result of us wanting to eat shrimp. Swordfish is another problem, because sea turtles are being driven to extinction because they accidentally get caught in fishermen who are targeting swordfish. So they're trying to catch the swordfish, but they're also catching all these sea turtles. So international laws have also been unable to stop this. So instead of choosing swordfish, have, for example, farmed sturgeon instead. It's a better alternative. So if you have a choice of eating swordfish, it's not a sustainable food. Okay, it's affecting too many other animals. But if we all want to eat swordfish all the time, guess what? The fishermen are going to go get the swordfish. But they're going to affect the sea turtle population more and more. So try and stay away from swordfish. Again, every time we choose to eat something at a restaurant or at the supermarket, we're voting for that. We're a part of this problem. But we could also be a part of the solution. Another food that is a very popular food these days, which my poor uncle's going to cry when I tell him about this, because Chilean sea bass is a very delicious fish, but it's on the verge of commercial extinction right now. Okay? It is estimated that 4 out of 6 Chilean sea bass are caught illegally. Right now, 4 out of 6. That's huge. So that Chilean sea bass that you're seeing in your fish market has probably, most likely, been illegally caught. Instead of choosing Chilean sea bass, go for sablefish. It's also known as black cod. It's a better alternative. Sustainable fish. Okay, when you hear these terms like sustainable food choices, this is what we're talking about. Chilean sea bass is not a sustainable choice, whereas sablefish is a sustainable choice. There's not a problem with the population. This is pretty amazing information. The bluefin tuna. There's such a high demand for bluefin tuna, it can sell for more than $100,000 each in Japan. $100,000 for one bluefin tuna. Because it's in such a high demand, and it's taken its toll. The Atlantic population has declined by nearly 90% since the 1970s. 90%. So instead of bluefin tuna, try troll or pole-caught albacore, yellowfin, big eye, or skipjack tuna instead. And this is not only in the United States, this is worldwide, this problem. Fishing has become a worldwide problem. There's not enough fish in the sea for everybody in this world. So we have to try and choose the sustainable choices as opposed to these fish that are in jeopardy. Okay. Farmed salmon. So this, if you look on slide 26, you'll see what a typical farm looks like. Can you see how many fish are in there? It's like crammed in there. Farming salmon can do more harm than good. Millions escape, diseases are spread, waters are polluted, and wild fish are used for feed. So instead of getting farm salmon, which is not a sustainable choice, try wild-caught Pacific salmon instead. And if you're sitting here and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I can't keep track of all this, I have a solution for you. So don't worry, okay? I'm going to give you some tools and tips. So we need to take awareness to the next level, okay? And there's a great website called MontereyBayAquarium.org. And what they have there is a lot of tips and downloadable materials so you can learn more and spread the word in your community. Also, when you go out to a restaurant, ask your favorite restaurants and retailers to supply sustainable options and support companies that source environmentally responsible seafood. So, you know, if they just have swordfish and shrimp as options, can you ask them, say, hey, can you get some, black cod in? Could you get some yellowfin tuna in? So ask for those choices that are better for the environment, that are more sustainable. But if you're always going to the store and saying, hey, you don't have my swordfish, where's my bluefin tuna? You're just supporting it. Okay? I'm a sushi lover, so I have to be very careful which fish I'm choosing because I'm voting for that fish. Like, I didn't know this about bluefin tuna, and one day I went to this Japanese supermarket, and sure enough, there was, bluefin tuna there. And I bought it. I didn't know. And then when I found out, I was like, okay, I'm not buying that anymore because I'm voting. Again, every time I buy something, I am either supporting or not supporting what's going on. So, at this website that I just told you about, the Monterey Bay Aquarium, you're going to find something that looks like this, slide 28. It's called Seafood Watch. And for my friends that are here today, I have actually already printed you all out one. This is the Northeast Guide. And what's lovely about this is you just cut it, stick it in your wallet, and you can actually carry this around with you. And so they have a guide for all of the United States. If you should take a look. If you're in different parts of the world, you're probably buying many of the same fish anyway, so just take a look at the different fish that are on the lists. And if anybody listening who is in other parts of the world has found similar great links, please email them to help@gnosticteachings.org because I would love to find out more fabulous links such as this. But if you look at this, you can download a guide from all the various parts of the regions of the United States, and what you'll get is something that looks like this. And so what it does is it tells you what are your best choices for eating seafood, what are good alternatives, and what you should avoid. And the reason you avoid them is because they're being overfished or farmed in ways that harm other marine life or the environment. So, for example, on the East Coast, they say that, for example, they'll tell you which farmed varieties and which wild varieties are the most sustainable choices. Okay, so this is a really great way just to go shopping and choose which foods will be best for you and the environment as well. Okay, so make sure you pick one up at the end of the lecture. So as far as how much fish should we eat? So there are these issues with fish, and there's also high levels of mercury in many fish. So what you should do, it really depends on which stage of life you're on for the amount of fish you should eat in a week. So for example, children and pregnant women, you should avoid eating the highest level mercury contaminated fish. So for example, shark, swordfish, king mackerel, or tilefish. These are really big fish, and they have the highest mercury levels. And if you eat a lot of these types of fish, you are at risk of mercury poisoning. Okay, so you want to limit this, especially if you're pregnant or if you have small children. Children and pregnant women should eat up to about 12 ounces a week of a variety of fish. 12 ounces, about 2 meals. And get ones that are low in mercury. So canned light tuna, salmon, pollock, and catfish are good choices. And also, if you are fishing locally or a family comes by and says, hey, I caught this at the lake, make sure you're checking to see where your fish is coming from. So, for example, the river right here, they have an advisory. Like, we warn you, don't eat this fish. Okay, so make sure that you know where your fish is coming out of. So, for example, the benefits and risks of eating fish for middle-aged people and postmenopausal women far outweigh the risks. So if you are middle-aged man or postmenopausal woman, we definitely recommend that you eat your fish. But again, try to balance it. Different varieties. Don't eat only one type, because then you'll have more of a chance of getting contamination of that fish type. So eating a variety of fish will help the adverse effects and also prevent the environmental pollutants from entering. So if you are very concerned about contamination, these are some of the steps you can take about what you should do. I love fish. I absolutely need to eat fish at least once a week because I really enjoy the benefits that I have in my body. It's a protein that responds very well in my body. But I try to follow these guidelines. So first of all, I try to find out where my fish come from. I go to the store and I take my little guide and I figure out which fish are my best options, first of all. And then also trim the skin and the fat as much as possible, okay, when you're cooking. And try to grill your fish or boil it to reduce the fat. Fat in any animal is where the toxins are stored. Okay, so I know some people go, oh, the fat is the best part, right? Okay, then eat just a little bit of the fat, because the fat is actually the worst part. The fat might be the tastiest, right? But it's actually the worst because that's where all the toxins are stored. So if you are one of those people that like to grill their steak, keep the fat on, and enjoy that fat, limit your fat on it, okay? At least try and get the organic, really good meat so you know that there are less toxic effects in there. Also, eat different kinds of fish. The more, if you have a range, you're going to minimize the contamination from one fish group. So go for all different types. And actually, the best fish are the smaller fish on the food chain. So anchovies, mackerel, sardines, these, because they live shorter lives, they don't have the opportunities to pick up as much toxins as the larger fish. The really big fish live longer, and they have a lot of time to accumulate all those toxins by swimming in the water. So the lower on the food chain they are, the more sustainable they are on the environment. Okay? Okay, so I have some bad news that I found out this week. Has anybody heard about this? Genetically modified salmon? Okay, well, let me tell you what happened this week. When I heard this on the radio, oh no, I said. A Massachusetts company wanted federal approval to sell genetically modified salmon to the public, saying that this salmon is safe for human consumption, as well as the environment. So what happened is a team of FDA scientists, they agreed with their claims, and now it's going to ask for final approval on September 19th. So in 8 days, they're going to find out if they could start feeding us genetically modified salmon. What this means is it's called the Aqua Advantage salmon, okay? And it reportedly looks like a regular salmon. No different than a regular salmon, except that it is given a gene from the ocean pout. If you look on slide 32, the ocean pout is the upper right side fish. So it gets a gene from the ocean pout, and then it gets a gene from the Chinook salmon, which is on the left. So they take a gene from each, and they insert it. And what this does, they insert it into the Atlantic salmon. It makes it grow twice as fast. Okay, twice as fast. So to eliminate the risk that the salmon could get into the wild, what they're planning is this company is planning to produce all of these genetically engineered salmon eggs at its facility on Prince Edward Island in Canada. And then they want to ship them to Panama for growing. And then they want to sell it in the U.S. That's their plan. Okay? And 100% of the fish are female. 99% of them are infertile. What's happening is, if on the bottom also you can see there's the genetically modified salmon in the back and the regular salmon in the front. They're the same age. But look how much faster the big salmon grew. Okay? The problem is we don't know what genetically modified foods is going to do to us. Also, many people are worried, what if these salmon escape and get into the regular waters and start breeding with the wild salmon? What is this going to produce? So there are a lot of concerns, and not only that, but if they approve this genetically engineered salmon, there's also many other companies that have already created genetically engineered animals. For example, there's one that's this genetically altered hog that produces less harmful manure. You know, if this fish gets approved, what's going to happen, right? All these other companies are going to say, well, if we can have genetically engineered fish, we can have genetically engineered hogs and cows and everything else. So what science starts doing is playing God, right? And saying that they can create the better hog, less harmful manure. The better salmon gets fatter faster. Science is trying to create the better animal. Meanwhile, you know, God had his plan for thousands of years and it's been working fine. So we don't know what this is going to cause. And so we'll find out in 8 days whether or not we'll have to be watching out for genetically engineered salmon. And also, they probably won't have to label this salmon. So you won't even know if you're eating it or not. So I warn you to beware of the frankenfish. On slide 33, someone thought this was pretty funny, and I did too. This is the frankenfish. And it's a sad reality, but this is the days that we're living in. So this is one of the reasons, too, I thought this was so important to talk about, because things are turning right now. There's a tide, and it seems like it's going towards more science-based food supply. And we really need to become aware of what's going on, because this is going into our bodies. So we need to become aware of what we're choosing to put in there. So some resources for this lecture that I thought would be helpful to support it. On slide 34, you'll see there's a lecture on Gnostic Radio called Physical Nourishment. That is a great follow-up to this lecture. Also, the movies, The Matrix 2, and The Matrix 2.5. It's actually translated in over 30 languages, and it's a really great movie to teach you about factory farms and what we can do to help stop that. The websites that can support this lecture really well are eatwellguide.org and the Monterey Bay Aquarium.org. Also, those movies that I told you about, Living a Nightmare, Animal Factories in Michigan, that you can find on Google Video. So I hope through this lecture I did make you more aware of the importance of choosing certain proteins more wisely and what goes into your body, and just becoming more aware of what's happening out there. The next half of this lecture will deal with dairy, beans, grains, bee products, vegetarianism, and the common cosmic trigo-auto-egocrat law. Try to say that 10 times fast. Okay, so we'll be dealing with those topics on the next lecture, the second half of the proteins lecture. And I just wanted to end with this quote from the Prophet Muhammad, which I thought was very profound as well. It says, "A good deed done to an animal is as meritorious as a good deed done to a human being, while an act of cruelty to an animal is as bad as an act of cruelty to a human being." So choose your proteins wisely. Choose your animals that have not been tortured, so that we can start a change, at least with ourselves and hopefully with the world at large. So I'll take any questions, and after questions, I encourage everybody to watch The Matrix. We'll be watching it as well here. So if you have any questions. Yes?
Do you have any information? I heard, I think it was yesterday, there's a recall on milk.
I didn't hear about that one. No. Yeah? Yeah, and what do they say the recall was on? Did you hear?
I can't remember the brands. It might have been farmland.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a factory farmed milk. And, you know, probably what it is, it's either salmonella poisoning or, you know, one of those. Because like I said, these cows are all bunched up in these confined quarters, and the illness is spread really rapidly.
And that recall of the eggs, that was just on the West Coast. Has it crept over here?
Yeah, it's, I don't think it was here, but there were many it went to the West Coast and the Midwest. But yeah, and again, that's factory farming. Good examples of what's going on with all these recalls. And then the sad thing is with these recalls, they destroy all of these millions of pounds of meat or eggs or whatever. Because why couldn't they just treat it well in the first place, and then we wouldn't have to destroy all of this food? Yes, sir. Kosher and halal. Kosher and halal are methods of killing the animal. Many Jewish people, especially Orthodox Jews, follow a kosher diet, and they believe the way the animal is killed and affects the quality of the meat, as well as having a rabbi present. So these kosher markets, what they do is they'll have a rabbi on site overseeing the way that the animal's killed and also praying over the animal. It's the way that I believe that the animal's blood is drained from the body, and that it should be more humanely treated in its death. Same with halal. Halal is the Muslim way of having meat killed, and there are different ways of raising and killing the animal. So they have certain rules and regulations in order for meat to be considered halal or kosher that they have to follow. And so you'll see these markets that say, like, we sell halal meat, and Muslims will only eat halal meat because of the way that of what it's fed, of what it's raised, and how it's killed. I'm not sure about the exact specifics. For the next lecture, I'll come back with that information for you. Okay, good.
Can you recommend fish or krill supplement?
Can I recommend a fish or krill supplement? No, I can. I would encourage you to investigate where it comes from, though. Just make sure also that it's an organic source.
What about omega-3 tablets?
Same thing. Whatever you're getting, there's going to be omega-3 tablets is the question. Can I recommend? It depends what country you're in. We have listeners from all over the place. I'm not sure where you're asking from. But again, whatever you're getting, investigate. Don't just go to the health food store and go, oh, this looks good. And don't rely on the health food person that's there. A lot of them are working for minimum wage and don't know much. Investigate. Look online. Look at good sources. Find out where it's coming from. Wherever you're getting it from, make sure it's coming from sustainable food choices, and also that it is organic, or it has specifications of how it is raised. One good source I know there is, if you are in the United States, there's a good website that sells a lot of products that I really like this person's products. It's GaryNull.com. Gary and Null, Null.com. He sells a lot of products, and he has a lot of information on a lot of these topics that I'm talking about, and he has a radio show on in New York, at least every at noon on 91.5 or something, and it's great. It's all these topics, but on his website you can find good sources. Yes?
You mentioned that some toxins are in fat. Does that stand to reason the same is true when you're overweight?
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Repeat the question. Toxins are in the fat of animals. Is that true that if we're overweight, the toxins are also in our fat? Yes. Fat is where toxins are stored. Fat is for that reason. Fat is for insulation and for storage of toxins. So fat is used as a source of getting rid of those toxins from the muscle of our body and going into the fat storage. Just because you have more fat doesn't mean you have more toxins, but it just means that's where the storage happens. And everybody has some fat, unless you're really, really skinny. So even you have some fat back there, mister. He's showing off his lean body, so I'm just telling him he has some too. Yes.
You mentioned canned tuna, but we were told that eating canned food is no good.
Yeah, canned tuna. Should we eat canned tuna? I personally don't eat canned foods. Whenever possible, I would prefer jarred tuna. So forget the canned tuna, go with the jars. Okay. Any other questions here? Yes, sir.
What if you have a different rate of metabolism, like your metabolism is very high?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could eat the little palm-sized portion and
Okay.
still seem like I have enough food. So
Good question. So the question is rate of metabolism. If you have a very quick rate of metabolism, a palm-sized portion of meat wouldn't do me any good. Okay, but what are you supplementing it with?
and that's why I'm wondering if I should double up on what I'm eating, or just go with high energy
Yeah, what I would recommend for you is you've got to find what the right amount of protein is for you, but start out with that palm size amount and then add the salad, add the grain, add, are you adding those other sides to it as well?
No, it's usually just...
Okay, that's the problem. Okay, so we discovered the truth. The truth is he's just having a big old steak and then saying, nothing else. And then he puts ketchup and he thinks that's the vegetable, right? Yeah. Okay, that's the problem. All right, so what we need to, let's redesign that meal, okay? So palm-sized portion of protein, a good grain, okay? A good grain, and in our next lecture we'll talk about lots of different good sourced grains, okay? But you can do, some rice, some quinoa, some whatever kind of grain you like. Get a nice whole grain there, and then get vegetables as well. That's what makes up a nice meal. You need vegetables, you need whole grains, you need protein, not just protein. All right? Try that this week and get back to me next week, okay? All right, thank you. Anybody else have questions?
How about the farm-raised, like you have farm-raised salmon
Mm-hmm.
and wild salmon?
Yeah.
And some say farm-raised is not bad. I mean,
Okay, did you see the picture of the farm-raised?
yeah.
All right, so farm-raised, like I said, if all you're eating is farm-raised, there's probably an issue with it, okay? I would alternate it, and I would get, I can't find it now, but I would also get wild salmon. If it's once in a while, it's okay, but if that's all you're getting is farm-raised, then it's an issue. But that's why I gave you this little nice guide, so you can look up the guide, because the guide is going to tell you what are your better alternatives, okay? Kevin, you had a question?
The guide will show you that some places farm-raised is
That's what I'm saying. Some places it will be. Some places it will, and some places it won't. So some farm-raised will be okay, and some farm-raised won't be, depending on their practices. Okay? That's why I'm saying the guide is a better, and this gets updated. So, every so often, like every 6 months or a year, take a look at it again and get the updated version of the guide, because it does change. Okay? Yes?
Also, I was wondering, you mentioned the dangers of bacteria from manure, like running off into groundwater and drinking water eventually.
Yeah.
Can we assume that the same is true for like hormones and antibiotics that are ingesting will urinate or definitely get them out and
Oh, yeah.
drinking water and affect the water?
Yes. The question is, all of these, all of the runoff that's coming from the farms, is it true of hormones and antibiotics as well? And it is true. Actually, also, they did a study of the water, and they found out that there's a whole bunch of drugs in our water system. They found there was an anti-seizure drug in our water system. They found there was like mood-altering drugs in our water system. So, yeah, not only are we having hormones, antibiotics, and drugs in our water, besides fluoride, but fluoride's good for you, right? That's a whole other topic. Don't believe that. But the question is, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff in our water. And actually, I'm in the process of really trying to find an alternative to good water source. So as I'm going through this, I will let you know. Maybe that'll be a whole lecture on water, because I'm really struggling with this whole bit about water, like tap water, bottled water, because they're finding out that all the bottled water, the plastic, has it's having an effect in our bodies like estrogen, the plastic that we're drinking. So it's like our body is taking in more estrogen. It has like this weird effect in our bodies, and so I'm really struggling on this whole bottled water. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm in the process of looking at really different filters, reverse osmosis and all these different things, because I drink a lot of water. That's my main thing that I drink. And so I'm really struggling with this. So as I come to that, I guess I'll develop that into a lecture too, because I think many of you are struggling with the same thing. Yes?
Oh, you're talking about the drugs in the water, getting into the water supply. I heard this funny story. I don't know if it's true, but up in Seattle, people drink so much coffee, so the caffeine was getting into a lake, and they're saying the fish are getting the caffeine and swimming off faster.
Really? Is that true?
I don't know.
The story goes that the people in Seattle drink so much coffee that the caffeine from the urine, from their urine, was getting into the lake, and the fish were swimming even faster. I'm not sure if that's true. If anybody wants to investigate and get back to me on that, that's fine. Question?
It was reported this week that fish in the Connecticut River have high levels of radioactivity, and the only source that they've been able to identify is the Chernobyl accident in 1986.
It was reported this week that fish in the Connecticut Sound, Long Island Sound, the Connecticut River, had high levels of radioactivity, and they could only say that the relationship was because of the Chernobyl accident in, what, that was the 80s?
In 86.
86. So they're linking it to that. So what is that saying?
What it
that
says is that even if the reports and papers all say that things are safe,
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is the media is controlled, very controlled. So don't believe what you're hearing. Become your own best advocate. Learn what you're putting in your body, because nobody else cares what you're putting in your body. Let me just tell you that. If they cared about you, there would not be a fast food restaurant in every corner. There would not be factory farm foods being sold to us. They don't care. They just want to make money. It's a business. So if you don't care, they really don't care. So the only one that can take care of your temple is you. Okay? You are the only one who can control what goes in and what goes out of your body. So you need to become, educated and aware of what's going on. Because unfortunately, we live in a world that doesn't care about us. Very few people do. And so I'm hoping to be one of the ones who actually does care about you enough to teach you this. So go out and eat well. And until our next lecture then. Thank you.
The presentation of this lecture was made possible by donations from listeners like you. Help Gnostic Radio to help others. Make a donation by visiting gnosticradio.org. For questions and deeper understanding of this lecture, we invite you to explore the wide variety of resources available on our websites. Thank you for your support. May all beings be happy.